Eagles training camp is less than 3 weeks away, but Howie Roseman might want to pick up the phone and make one more move before the season. Plus, Dallas and San Francisco, they're on the verge of losing both of their star wide receivers. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. It's no secret that the Eagles' current roster does not have nearly as many holes as it did last year. Right now, they have an elite offensive line, an elite quarterback, 2 elite wide receivers, a great tight end, an elite running back, a solid defensive line, and an overwhelmingly loaded secondary, which means it's pretty hard to critique their current roster. Even PFF ranks the Eagles as the 3rd best overall roster heading into the NFL season, only behind Kansas City and San Francisco. But of course, no roster is perfect, and after the debacle last year, despite having what was a strong roster, some fans feel like the Eagles could still be a move away from feeling 100% confident in the team heading into 2024. So if the Eagles did want to make a move before the September 6th opener against Green Bay, I think I know the list of players they might choose from. First, I have 2 giveaways happening very, very soon. First, the signed Brandon Graham jersey from our interview a couple of days ago, and the Saquon Barkley Nike t-shirt. It's really simple to enter. Go to my pinned comment down below to figure out how to enter for both of those giveaways. Oh, and speaking of rosters really quickly, the Dallas Cowboys continue their all-in offseason from hell as a brand new report dropped yesterday saying, quote, CeeDee Lamb will request to be traded if the Cowboys do not offer him a new contract worth at least $32 million per year. He wants to be at least the 2nd highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Shout out to Howie Roseman for getting A.J. Brown inked during the draft months ago, not only to keep him happy in Philadelphia, but to ensure the fact that Dallas would have to offer even more to a lesser wide receiver, in my opinion, in order for the Cowboys to keep their top target in CeeDee Lamb. Oh, and speaking of disgruntled wide receivers on NFC East foes, the Niners and Brandon Ayuk standoff continues with Ayuk saying the other day, quote, "You can't afford a Lamborghini, you can't have one." Now, Ayuk is easily the Niners' best wide receiver option. Kind of starting to feel a little bit far-fetched that he stays in San Francisco this year. Let's just all hope he doesn't end up in our division with his BFF Jaden Daniels. Now, when it comes to the Eagles roster, the first hole I think everyone has agreed on since before the draft has to kind of be safety. Now, don't get me wrong, the addition of C.J. Gardner-Johnson vastly improves what was a major weak spot on the Birds' defense last year, and I personally am way higher on Reed Blankenship than a lot of fans are. Plus, Cindy Brown says he's getting healthier and healthier. I think he's going to be ready to go week 1. Will he be actually physically ready to go week 1 in terms of NFL shape? That's a different story. But overall, technically, the Eagles have 3 solid options at safety. They should be just fine. I guess 4 if you throw JamesBradberry in there, but let's just assume for now he's not going to be playing safety. But we mentioned safety because depth could still be a problem. As great as C.J. Gardner-Johnson has been, his big problem throughout his entire career has been actually staying healthy. This is where Justin Simmons comes back into the picture. And, okay, stop you right there. I know you've probably seen a billion headlines saying Eagles close to signing Justin Simmons over the past few months, and yet the Eagles did not sign Justin Simmons. But he still is a free agent, meaning he's not going to sit out in 2024. And so at some point, some team is going to offer him a contract that he likes, and he'll play for that roster. Clearly, he's waiting on a team having a massive need, aka an injury, during training camp to boost his contract value and lock in, so it's probably going to happen in August. It's just crazy it hasn't happened just yet. Well, I think Justin Simmons would make some sense for Philadelphia. He would add some much-needed depth at a position, like we just mentioned, that is a little bit weak behind the first 3. I think the main problem for Philadelphia and Simmons is that Justin wants to start. He's coming off of a bunch of fantastic years in Denver, and I think the Eagles are very high on Reed Blankenship. They promised Reed Blankenship the starting safety spot as long as he wins it during training camp. They don't just want to bring in competition and throw up the whole mess of Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship as your current starting safeties. If Justin Simmons is okay with coming in and competing and not being guaranteed the starting spot, or maybe playing, X amount of snaps, 50%, 30%, who knows, then it makes a ton of sense for the Eagles. But I still think Justin Simmons is like, I'm not going to sign with you unless you guarantee me to be the starter, hence why he's still unsigned. Now, I did mention the Birds are pretty set on the defensive line, but you can never have enough pass rushers, and despite Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith, in my opinion, gearing up for really big years in 2024, adding another pass rusher could never hurt. The problem is, if you want at least an honest opinion on the current free agent market, there is not a ton of people. I think Yannick Ngakoue is probably the only option if the Birds got really desperate. Now, he has been a journeyman going around the NFL team after team, and he did sign a 1-year deal with the Chicago Bears last year for $10.5 million. But he only had 4 sacks in 13 games and broke his ankle in week 14. And so, honestly, due to the long recovery time, no surprise he's available right now in free agency. Now, again, pass rusher isn't a huge need. I think the Eagle defensive line is going to be just fine. Very excited to see what Bryce Huff looks like here in 2024. But again, if you get to training camp and you're like, we need another guy, Ngakoue's probably your best bet, although I don't know how much he can actually give you at this point in his career. Now, the only other hole I can really actually dig deep and find has got to be the wide receiver 3 position, and I know the Eagles have A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. They're going to get the bulk of the targets, throw in Dallas Goedert as well. Like, they're fine in terms of overall pass catchers. They're actually more than fine, but depth is always a very, very good thing, and right now, behind the top 2, it's anything but guaranteed. Paris Campbell is clearly the leader in the clubhouse for that wide receiver 3 spot, but we forget he was benched last year and only had 104 receiving yards in 2023, with only 5 games having more than 1 catch. A lot of those games he had 0. Johnny Wilson and Anais Smith, well, they're rookies. They're vastly unknown, and while training camp, preseason games can be your time to shine, especially with Kenny Pickett being the quarterback, I think right now there's definitely no guarantee they can contribute at least a wide receiver 3 workload heading into their rookie season. Thankfully, though, unlike the safety market, unlike the offensive line market, and definitely the pass rusher market, there are a ton of options for wide receiver 3 if Philadelphia feels inclined to go ahead and make a move. And trades are kind of the first place we should look. I mentioned it the other day. Tyler Lockett is someone I'd be fascinated with after Bleacher Report listed him as a potential trade candidate because the Seahawks are having a new coach. They're probably going to move off Geno Smith. It's kind of a, rebuilding year up there in Seattle, and Lockett is fantastic and has been a catch machine his entire career with the Seahawks. He'd be a massive upgrade at wide receiver 3. The only problem is he's a little bit more expensive than anyone else on this list. $4.5 million this year in terms of base salary, $10 million in 2025. But if the Seahawks get kind of desperate, maybe even during the trade deadline, you got to make a phone call to Seattle just to make sure. The other trade option is John Metchie from Houston, who a lot of people have really linked to Philadelphia because the Texans have a plethora of wide receivers after adding Stephon Diggs. You got Tank Dell. I mean, they have a ton of really good players. But Metchie is somebody who they haven't really used since drafting him out of Alabama, and it feels like if their wide receiver room is definitely too full during trading camp, there's another team Philadelphia and Howie should at least give a call to. In terms of free agent signing options, there's still quite a bit of players. The confusingly available Hunter Renfroe is still waiting to pick a team, and although I don't understand how a former 1,000-yard receiver just 2 years ago can be unsigned, there clearly has to be something going on. My guess is he's kind of in the same boat as Justin Simmons and hoping for an injury during training camp that can kind of boost his salary leverage and get him more jingle in his pocket this year. But Renfroe just makes way too much sense as a wide receiver 3, and I'm surprised nobody, not even just the Eagles, but nobody has made a phone call to him and given him an offer that he can't refuse. Michael Thomas is the only other name I've seen thrown around in my comment section a bunch, and guys, he's going to be 32 years old at the end of this season, and he's not been relevant for a very long time, since, prime Drew Brees, so I'm out on Michael Thomas. Give me Renfroe or one of the two of either Metchie or Tyler Lockett if you need to go ahead and get a wide receiver 3. Now, I think the point of this video today is to show you that there isn't much available on the market. It's kind of like you have what you have on the current Eagles roster, roll with that, and then if you get really desperate, look into a very bleak free agent pool or a very slim trade market. But overall, the Eagles roster is definitely set up to be very successful. We just want to make sure that it is in the best shape possible. And if you need to go sign somebody, you need to go trade for somebody, these are your options that would make the most sense for Howie, Roseman, and company. We have a lot of stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks. Off for 4th of July, doing a little bit of traveling to see my family back home. We still have plenty more content happening during July, including the video yesterday. If you missed it, I didn't do necessarily news. I just broke down all my thoughts on why Kellen Moore, and actually how Kellen Moore, can turn Jalen Hurts into a superstar MVP quarterback this year. A lot of you guys are enjoying that. If you missed it, go ahead and check it out down below in the description box. And again, plenty more videos like that happening during the dog days the next couple of weeks before we get back into the whole news side of things when the Eagles report to training camp on July 23rd. I'm Thomas Mott. Have a great 4th of July. Be safe with those fireworks. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.